Hello and welcome to another episode of Teppou Republic. On the last episode we saw a newly constructed Sioux fleet take on an Imperial navy and destroy it despite the enemy's advantage, a good start for our new boats. Immediately afterwards the Matsue attacked Kunimitsu on the border of Inaba and Hoki, bringing a slightly superior traditional heavy army that was unfortunately for them cut down by the superior firepower of Kunimitsu's position and then countered with his melee units, meaning he was able to win a total victory against these Matsue invaders. Then we saw Compton, our heroic admiral, be attacked by a Matsume fleet which was joined into a coalition of Imperial ships which all ganged up on him. His ship was already damaged and undermanned from previous battles, so he was in a bit of trouble. The enemy didn't do themselves many favours with their formation. They really screwed themselves over and destroyed some of their own ships, but still Compton was taking fire for a long time and his guns had been knocked out, so there wasn't much he could do. Eventually, the few remaining survivors among his crew were forced to surrender and Compton himself was killed. We lost our greatest fleet commander. The last thing we saw was Takayuki moving back behind the front lines to deal with the Hiroshima invasion that has dodged our defences so far. Now let's continue. You have assumed that I must support one side or the other. Allow me to rephrase the question for you. Would you rather fight for an authoritarian, backward-thinking, self-serving nobility, or an increasingly maniacal, unproven, rebellious gang ring-led by former nobility? In these terms, perhaps you can understand how I hear the question you've asked me. I have travelled for a long time, since far before this war started, and met plenty of people who hated the Shogunate, and plenty who loved it. Travelling in Sioux lands after the revolution, the mix was about the same, but increasingly as time went on, a dark and murderous spirit arose about them. Their new government is pushing their people into a hatred fueled by rage to get them to fight, using the people for their own ambition, be it technically for the people's benefit or not. Nothing admirable, just the other side of the coin from what we had before. Not that I have any love at all for the Emperor or the Shogun, men who've strayed far from lives of meaning or honour. I am one who dwells on the tiny edge of the coin, in between the two sides, ignored whichever side up the coin lands. I have no ambition to fight for either side in this war. My ambition is to find someone who understands my point of view, truly and deeply, and sees the world as I see it. When I have found them, I will fight them, either dying with a peaceful integrity, or living to continue the search. My life will be no more and serve the desires of no other man. So we're back and the focus is on stopping the invasion of the Imperial forces coming into our territory, or at least getting too far because they're already in our territory at the moment. I have this big army in Iga which has been sitting around for a long time. Its objective was to quell any more rebellions if they haven't happened for a very long time, and now it's an opportunity to use them again. They can move out to join Takayuki as he moves south towards Kawachi, which also appears to be the target of the Hiroshima invasion force. In Setsu, we need to deal with the Okayama force. This is the one that attacked Setsu previously and was defeated in a castle assault, but many of its men actually survived, so they've still got a good number of troops. But I've got these two battered but still powerful stacks who can pretty much best the enemy in every different area, artillery, infantry, cavalry, etc. So when they attack, especially combined, the balance bar is very far in our favour. We're able to wipe out the enemy, and we don't have to fight them in a field battle, which would have given the enemy support from naval fire, as you can see by the flashing icon down there. A decisive victory is won and the Okayama are wiped out, so now Setsu is free of enemy forces for now. These two armies though aren't in the best condition. I really need to get them replenishing, but I don't have any generals to put inside the army to begin replenishment, so they're going to have to garrison themselves somewhere to get troops back. Setsu's the obvious choice. I start micromanaging these armies to get as many men as I can into the castle, and they're just going to have to hang around for a while. Now the ships that I did build to go and save Compton, who obviously can't do that anymore, have returned to dock to repair themselves after their previous naval battle, and I'm also building more ships who'll be teaming up with them soon to make a more formidable force to go and take back the area west of Kawachi, which we need to stop the enemy bombarding our provinces and landing more troops. In Owari, I realized I've pretty much got a full field army now recruited, ready to deploy, so I'm going to start putting them into the field in order to get more troops to move west and help out with the invasion situation, although at this point we have so many troops behind our lines that I think I'm actually quite safe from their invasion. You'll see this army has Armstrong guns in it, the first army to be deployed with those units. It also has the first army to be deployed with these Gokunin heavy melee infantry. So as a good number of very decent units, this army should perform very well. Once it gets into the field, I'll probably switch a general into this force, being our most modern and up-to-date army once it gets up to some front lines. Over in Echigo, you'll remember the Sado landed forces in the province. Luckily, I have a huge garrison because Echigo's public order is so low, I have to keep all these troops around. These are basically forces that used to be in either Takemichi Okadama's armies or newly recruited forces who are hanging around and are now supposedly able to stop the Sado, but actually they don't quite have enough movement points, and I didn't want to send the cavalry out to initiate battle and bring the rest of the army in as reinforcements because then I wouldn't get to use the mortars. So I'm going to wait until next turn to finish with that situation. Takemichi himself nearby is ready to move on Fukushima. As he moves in, we can see there's a single Odawara army with one unit standing in front of the castle. I attack, it stands its ground. A very brave band of Shogunate faced off against Takemichi's entire army. Perhaps brave, perhaps foolish, but nonetheless their defeat is a decisive victory for Takemichi's forces without taking any losses. So now the final Odawara castle at Fukushima is ripe for the taking. I attack, it has half a stack of troops in it, but those troops are very low quality. The balance bar is so far in our favour I can immediately auto-resolve this situation, and Takemichi wins a heroic victory over the enemy and captures their best unit, their mortars, intact. A superb result. So Fukushima is ours. We're finally starting to take territory from the Shogunals yet again. I'm going to repair the castle. I also need to destroy the Shinsengumi headquarters, which is spreading Shogunate views in this province and surrounding ones. So getting rid of that will help with some of the public order issues I've been having in nearby provinces as well. It also has a railway station, so now I can move some of my reserve forces on the eastern front right up to the front line at Miyagi very quickly. And we can also see here that was indeed the final castle of the Odawara clan. Another long-term enemy has been wiped out. Lord Odawara, last of your name, I am here to oversee your arrest for your association with the pretender Shogun, in clear defiance of the Japanese Kokai and the National Proclamation of Sue. On a more personal note, I have seen the way your men fought in your name, and have nothing but the utmost respect for your abilities as a samurai. But, as I hope you're starting to see, the time for men like you has recently ended. I have permission from the Sue Executive Council to grant you leave to run for office in the Fukushima Municipal Assembly, should you so wish, but no other lord has taken up such an offer so far. The capture of Fukushima has given me access to the train station there, which is especially important for moving my forces now because these eastern provinces are very large and take many turns to walk through, but the train station allows me to essentially teleport with an absolutely minimal cost of movement points, and then you can continue to move from the station once you reach it. So I'm going to start moving these nearby forces to the station to bring them up to Fukushima, which then puts them just one turn's march away from the next border of an enemy province, the one at Miyagi. So here it's Anagakoji Yoshiuji pushing forwards after our shinobi who's going to go and scout the enemy. Neither can quite reach the enemy's territory this turn, but very soon they will be. So Yoshiuji will now quickly overtake Takemichi, but actually I decided I wanted to send Takemichi up this western approach going north to attack the province of Uzen. That way we'll have a two-pronged advance into the Shogunate territories and be able to start taking multiple territories at a time, really blitzkrieg the remaining forces before they can build up anything else. Now as I moved on, the Satsuma who landed in Ki attacked Ki itself as expected. Their force comes in sporting some pretty good units for a castle assault. Some leveled up, upgraded samurai units will be good once they get inside the castle. But of key interest, they have no artillery units, meaning they have to do a full-on infantry assault against our walls. So even though our forces are pretty low in quality, lots of levies and militia units, the fact that the enemy are going to be exposed to fire the whole time they're coming up to the walls means we do have an advantage in this first part of the battle, whatever the balance bar says. The enemy are advancing in two groups, both about equal in strength. The first group coming from the southeast, advancing up the very steep hill towards the larger part of the castle wall. Another group coming from the north. This group will have a slightly easier time getting at us. That's also slightly extending almost to the northwest, and they will be attacking the western wing of the castle as a result. Inside, I'm just scrambling my men to defend against these various directions of advance. I've got my best unit, my carbine infantry, looking out to the north, and my other high quality units are rushing to take up prime defensive positions against the enemy's advance from the southeast, the garrison infantry and the scouts being my best units in this area. The scouts have good long range. I can immediately start firing upon the enemy the second they get into position. We're only taking down their matchlock militants, not going to make a very big difference in the battle, but it's good to start somewhere and start slowly chipping away at the enemy, which will reduce their morale. We also have two squads of these fire rocket teams, one facing north, one facing the southeast. Those fire rockets are able to do minor damage but do really heavy damage to morale, and already we've routed a unit of enemy matchlock militants here in the north. Just being hit by the fire rockets will take a unit down to wavering, including a samurai unit, so they're a great shock unit if not particularly good at actually reducing enemy numbers. The carbine infantry, firing at pretty much their maximum range, aren't really able to hit anything. The rockets, though, are able to do some damage to these incoming samurai. You can see I've positioned some spear levy to stop the samurai from getting inside the castle. It looks like they're coming to attack the northern point of the east wing and then come into the middle of the castle, so I've got forces prepared to stop that. On the southeast, the enemy are getting closer. More and more of my men are able to start firing on the enemy. They're now leading with some of their better units. These Doshin, who have no armor, will not do very well, taking bullets as they come up. These Yarikachi as well are going to take heavy losses to our fire. Some fire rockets come in and absolutely blast this very badly spaced out regiment, dealing quite a lot of casualties actually. A big pile of bodies is left behind. The enemy's morale is shocked, but not shocked enough. They are going to make it to the wall and begin their climb, but it's going to be a long climb, so we've still got time to take out more of them. On the north side, they're already inside. The Yarikachi will now charge forward and engage those spear levy I prepared to stop them. Obviously, the enemy have a giant advantage. The enemy's leveled up, upgraded troops will completely rip through the spear levy in melee. There's no chance for our men to hold them. However, my matchlock militia on the wall just above them will be able to slowly take out the enemy whilst they're busy doing this, especially because they're so close. The matchlock militants will actually be able to get some hits. Their low accuracy won't allow them to be very effective at any other range. So those spear levy garrison are effectively now a sacrifice. On the western wing, more enemy samurai are coming up from all directions. Luckily for me though, they're starting to rout just as they get to the top. If they had gone over and started fighting my missile units, they would be in big trouble. And the Yari attendants behind them probably wouldn't have fared very well against these samurai either, but instead the samurai rout. The few who get inside the castle are cut down by my men, so the western wing is actually in a pretty safe position. The enemy's best missile unit, their landing force, rushes away after a blast from fire rockets breaks their morale. Excellent news. My spear levy garrison are now all but dead. They're wiped out, but the Yarikachi have been heavily damaged as well by the fire from the matchlocks. On the southeast, the enemy are struggling to decide which side of the castle they want to climb up. As a result, some of their units are starting to rout, and the routing units are walking past a squad of levy infantry here on the wall who are able to pursue them by fire, kill more of them, and most importantly stop them from coming back from routing and hopefully attempt to shatter them as they go. So we're keeping the enemy away. Now the enemy got desperate and decided to deploy their cavalry, including their general, on foot, sending him in to climb the walls. A very dangerous choice, especially for him, because his cavalry do have a long way to climb and my men are pretty much freed up to fire at them. The few survivors of the spear levy garrison can now be seen chasing off the survivors of the enemy samurai. My matchlocks managed to eventually kill them all. More samurai coming in, the Yariki to join them, so there's still a little bit of fighting left. But on the western part of the battlefield, the enemy are in full retreat, the fire rockets making sure they won't be coming back as they go. So overall, this section of the castle is now secure, and as a result of army losses, the remaining enemy forces in the castle suddenly chain rout, declaring a decisive victory for the Sioux forces. Key has been defended, and actually the losses were very light. The power of the enemy's army was no match for the defensive advantage we get for using firearms and artillery against their traditional army. They haven't learned the lesson of many battles so far in this war, and I doubt they'll learn from this one either. What did they think would happen? An invasion of Key was just about the worst choice they could make. Why? Because for the last year they have been shelling every town, every fort, every road, and everyone has lost someone they know as a result. The Satsuma thought that would drive them to give up, but all it did was drive them into a rage when a chance for revenge appeared. Half the province grabbed the nearest weapon and headed for Wakayama. Even if the Imperials had taken that fortress, there would be 1,000 more warriors ready to take it back. Such is the strength of a people enraged. The The battle results look very good, only a couple of hundred losses, the enemy taking thousands of casualties. That army will not be able to campaign effectively against us, but of course that's not their only card. They have more armies coming in to attack, including this small group which decides to attack my tea plantations, damaging the wealth of Setsu. Inconvenient, but not too bad. The Swano army that was heading down towards Mimasaka actually heads back home, so it seems that Takehisa doesn't have to defend that area anymore, at least not for this turn. The Hiroshima don't attack Kawachi as I expected there, they just move towards the coast. I'm not sure what they're trying to do. A curious move, but whatever they're doing, we do now have Takayuki and some reinforcements ready to chase them down. You can see the army actually looks like it's walking away both from Kawachi and Ki. I can't tell where it's attempting to go. But regardless, we're going to move towards them to make sure they don't get up to any funny business. Takayuki can head down and stand next to Kawachi itself, so if they do turn around and attack, he'll be able to reinforce, and if the enemy try to escape, he can continue to chase them from there. So with Mimasaka apparently safe for now, Takehisa is able to move back towards Bizen and resume his campaign to take it. You can see that Okayama have put their army into the field. Previously it was just garrisoning the castle, so perhaps they intend to move it somewhere. Now for Kunimitsu, I wanted to move on Hoki, but I take one step forward and find myself again trapped in the zone of control of a Matsue ship. So that didn't work very well, and going to have to continue to wait to find an opportunity to attack Hoki. I might even have to go around to the south and attack from another direction because this approach along the coast just isn't working. Back over near Owari, our new army is now getting into the trains to head to the battlefront. I wanted to send them to Harima, but I accidentally ended up sending them over to Yamashiro, and it turns out you actually can't take 2 train journeys in one turn, so I can't put them back on the train to continue to Harima. They have to wait until next turn, so now these guys are just going to be standing around here. An unfortunate mistake, but hopefully it'll teach me to be a bit more careful in selecting my destination in the future. You can see that our 2 train networks in the west and east aren't actually connected together, so I can't move people right across my territory at the moment, although I am working on sorting that out. So in Miyagi, it's now time to move my shinobi up to see if there are any enemy forces who'll stop me attacking. The road is completely clear up to the province itself, and we can see that the castle has a sort of third of a stack of guys outside and half a stack of garrison. Nothing too bad, we can probably take it with a single stack of our own troops, and so Yoshiuji is going to immediately begin his advance. He can just about advance up to a bridge across the river in the province, so if the enemy do counterattack right now, it could go much to our advantage. And of course when he arrives, my nearby navy will be able to support his attack as well. For Takemichi, I'm going to go ahead with the plan I mentioned earlier of sending him to attack Uzen on this other coastal road so that we'll be able to take it approximately at the same time as Miyagi, meaning we'll suddenly wipe out the Yonezawa clan, hopefully in one fell swoop. We can also now move Tananao up using the train station. He can move up to Fukushima. Miyagi also has a train station, though I don't believe it's been constructed yet, so there's no railway tracks going up to it. So once I capture it, I'll have to build one there, and that means it is going to be faster for me to walk from Fukushima than to wait for Miyagi to be constructed with a train station and then send forces up. It takes about 7 turns to construct train tracks in a province. Also, Kodama Haranaga, who hasn't seen any action in a very long time, will now be coming up as the rear guard. Unfortunately, he also manages to miss the train apparently, so he can't follow Tananao up and will have to go next turn. So now moving on, I actually forgot that I had ordered this group in Echigo to go and attack the Sado landing forces, and so they move at the start of the end turn sequence to attack them. So now it's time to do this battle. The enemy force is only small, it's got some very good units in it, and it has naval fire, but our little army here has overwhelming numbers, and our troops are very experienced. Some of them are even upgraded. We have 2 very experienced mortar crews who should do very well bombing the enemy as they advance, and the enemy will advance because we have a ranged artillery advantage. The battlefield itself is pretty flat looking. There's a small raised position for me to put my artillery on, so I've got them set up. You can see I put quite a big gap between the artillery line and the main line, just in case the enemy's naval fire targets the artillery, so I can move my main line out of the way and let the artillery take the brunt without my infantry getting hit by collateral damage. So the enemy, you can see, are just charging right towards us at full pelt. They are determined to get into range of my artillery, it seems. So they crossed the red line and are now going to start being bombarded. My guns aren't all that good. I've got a bunch of light guns who won't do anything, but once they come into range of the mortars, the damage will really start being done, especially because the mortar crew is very experienced. They'll fire quicker than usual and more accurately. I have some howitzers who are able to fire shrapnel, cutting down some of their rifle attendants, some of their better units. Their Doshin who are leading are taking the brunt of the mortar fire. They have very high morale, so they're able to take it, but not many of them are going to survive this crazy charge. You can see they're actually slowing down quite a lot, trying to reform as the mortars scatter their unit around. So a little bit later, I noticed the flare drop down from the enemy's naval fire. Oh, I should say I didn't notice it. You see it here in the replay. But as I was playing, I didn't see this. Usually the announcer tells you you're about to be hit by naval fire, but this time it didn't. So I was busy looking at the enemy's formation, seeing the effect of my artillery, not realizing a naval strike is about to hit my line. Just then I realized, in order for the whole line to run forward to try and get out of the way. You never know whether the enemy has done a narrowly targeted shot or a wide area artillery call, which if they have done the wide area call, there's usually no way to get out of the way in time because it hits such a wide area. Luckily in this case, they went for the more narrow firing arc, meaning a lot of the shots land in the gap between my artillery and the main line, so it was very good that I opened up that gap. Not all of them though. You can see a couple of shots hit my line, and even a single hit completely decimates the regiments it's hitting. These lines are being torn apart. Here my carbine infantry have had a massive gap knocked in their line, meaning there's now a huge gap in both of my lines actually leading right through, but they need to reform quickly because the enemy are beginning their attack and we are firing back rapidly. The enemy do have some decent line infantry, but of course we just have more. So the enemy can fire at us all they like. I'm confident that in the end we'll win, especially because my mortars are helping turn this battle in our favour. I've also got cavalry who have snuck behind the enemy's army and are now charging. The enemy turns to fire at them, but it's too late. The enemy's own cavalry are doing a massive attack on my left flank. Luckily it was pretty obvious this is what they're doing, so I've prepared. I've got these long lines of spearmen rushing out to lock the enemy down far away from the juicier targets further into my lines. So those cavalry are going to be surrounded by my spears there and caught. Another squad of cav is attacked by my own cavalry, who will have a bonus against them and will very quickly destroy them in melee. The enemy's infantry are now on the verge of destruction. Some of them are starting to fall back. My cavalry have routed some of the enemy's units on the left flank. The other units are taking so much more to fire that the morale shocks are unsustainable. They'll be going very soon. At this moment, their general decides to do the traditional tactic of doing a last-minute suicide charge towards my line. I don't know what he was thinking, but as he does it, he's taking a lot of fire coming out in front of the line on his own. And of course, I have plenty of spears. I send some Naganatas forward to receive him, but he actually routs before he reaches the line and gets out of there. So all of the enemy's army is gone. Their cavalry is actually fighting on, as well as this one squad of rifle attendants who is bravely standing where the rest of their army has fled, but after a few seconds they realize what's going on and get out of there. Their cavalry chain rout and flee from the field, even though actually their cavalry did do massive damage to my spear units, because spear units aren't actually that good against cavalry in this game in a strange twist, especially saber cavalry. But anyway, it's a decisive victory for this leaderless army in Echigo. This is yet another Sado landing force that has been foiled, but no doubt they will try again. They really need to build up more forces before they attack, but it seems they're too impetuous, and that is going to be their downfall if they keep doing it. Gentlemen, I must say, offended by the implication of your last communication. I heard each and every order to advance on hockey, but as you should well know, it is not the place of rulers to override the decisions of generals in the field. The road to our objective is a shelled out mess, with more of those same shells in store for my men if we were to attempt to traverse it. It is not a matter of fear as you wish to have people believe. It is a matter of preserving the glorious soldiers of our revolution so that even greater glory might be won in the future. Those of you who insist otherwise are clearly Imperial imposters. The battle results look very good. Looks like we lost a couple of hundred men. The enemy losing everything for their landing force. So that's another Sado army dispatched. And as I said, there might be more, but as long as they keep sending in these small teams that can't overcome my local defenses, I don't have to worry about them. And at the moment, I'm not thinking about doing a counter invasion. Now as we go on, the Satsuma move deeper into our territory with more invasion forces bypassing our defences in Setsu yet again. You can see curiously that during this sequence the messages are coming up as things happen rather than all at the end of the end turn sequence. I don't know why. One of my geisha in Yamashiro has been wounded by an enemy ninja, inconvenient. Hiroshima troops appear to be moving into Harima, so yet more troops coming in to attack our defences there. An enemy foreign veteran is killing some of my troops in Mikawa. No idea why, it's just a small garrison army, but they see fit to go and kill them. I've now researched surveillance, and next I'm going to research seclusion. Basically, the Sioux Empire is becoming more and more secluded from the west, and this is increasing the happiness of my people, which is quite nice. So Takemichi is now going to continue his plan of advancing towards Uzen. He is going to need a couple of turns to actually reach the castle, which means he can't attack right in tandem with the attack on Miyagi, because that's going to start right now. First, Yoshiyuji can move up to besiege the castle once I get my shinobi out of the way. The castle itself is going to have a full stack of defenders, and it has naval support fire. The balance bar is about even, not really the ideal situation. A castle assault would be costly, even if I use my artillery advantage to make things more one-sided. I can though move Tananao up to reinforce Yoshiyuji, so immediately that's going to approximately double my local forces. And I can also use these ships who are currently raiding the Yonezawa's trade to destroy their local boat and get rid of that naval artillery. It's just a single corvette. My fleet immediately eliminates it, and then I'm going to send that fleet straight back to continue raiding the trade, because they're making a little bit of money, not very much, not as much as they used to when the Shogunate was more powerful, but still useful to have that money coming in every turn. So now the situation on the siege is pretty damn good. The balance bar is very far in our favour, so I decided actually we can just auto-resolve to take Miyagi right now. The Yonezawa still have more territory, but it looks like they're not long for this world, especially because our stacks are going to overwhelm them, and their economy must be so small that they can't really field equivalent armies themselves at this point. So Miyagi's ours. I'm going to start repairing the castle and the docks destroyed by me. The province itself is actually quite well developed, a nice rich one, so we're going to make some good income off taking it. So now we need to deal both with that Yonezawa stack just sitting there, which is inconveniently right next to the railway station which I'm currently constructing, and we need to deal with taking Uzen, and towards that I'm sending a shinobi to go and see what they had. Actually, the Yonezawa don't appear to have anything, but for some reason there's a Sendai Shogunal Vanguard army just standing beside the castle. So Takemichi is probably going to have to fight them as he advances, and perhaps there's even more in the fog of war hanging around. We'll see as we get there. Now back in Ki, I'm pretty confident that the forces inside the castle won't be able to be defeated by the Satsuma's surviving forces. The main threat was the Hiroshima army, which now has actually curiously disappeared. It was in southwest Kawachi, but now we can't see it at all. The most likely case is that it's gone into hiding somewhere, seeing that our forces are going to probably beat it if they allow us to fight them. They're going to try and ambush us somewhere. There are forests down there in Kawachi that could be hiding in. There's also the matter of that Satsuma army, which is moving from Setsu into Kawachi at the moment. I decided to attack it with that force that I had trapped at the train station in Yamashiro that was going to go via train to Harima. They couldn't quite reach the enemy, but they could get right next to them. I noticed that Takayuki could reach them, meaning I could defeat them now, stopping them from doing any more sneaky business during the next end turn sequence, but it would mean basically abandoning Kawachi to the Hiroshima, who could reappear and immediately take it. The only thing was, I ended up deciding that I wasn't so concerned by the Hiroshima taking Kawachi, because I knew I would immediately take it back and may even be able to inflict heavy casualties on them as they attempted to assault it. So I decided to get rid of the Satsuma threat first. Takayuki moves up and pushes them away from the bridge. So now we've got them pretty much contained. Our defensive line there is pretty shored up actually. The enemy are unlikely to get through. I'm going to move some men from Yamashiro down to Ki just to support against another Satsuma landing force, if there is one, or if the Hiroshima sneak over to attack Ki like the Satsuma did, they might be able to defend it a little bit more successfully. Now over in Bizen, it's time for Takahisa to attack that Okayama army. It just stood there during the end turn sequence. I thought it might attack me, but we're going to get the chance to force them into a battle now. The enemy's army is pretty decent looking. They've got loads of leveled up and upgraded high tier samurai units, including the Gokunin. They've got Samurai Hero, Bakumatsu Lancers, Yariki, and some actual good missile units there with the rifle attendants. I was considering doing a night attack in order to reduce all of their morale. I mean, few of their troops reached my line if they charged, but actually that would mean that my guys have reduced accuracy and my artillery becomes more useless, so we're not going to do that. We'll see the real battle next time. that's all for this episode. We will face the Okayama and others and continue our attack on the Shogunate next time on Teppou Republic.